famous celebrities and people who passed away in the United States in 1968. This is the second part. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. B. Bernadette. She was born in April 1906 and she died in October 1968. Her age was 62 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was lung cancer. She was a versatile actress and comedian, born in New York City and raised in San Francisco. She began performing in Bay Area theater and radio before embarking on a Hollywood career that spanned over 3 decades. She first specialized in voiceover work in golden age of radio, appearing on numerous programs while working on comedians of the era such as Jack Benny, Burns and Allen, and Lucille Ball. Her expertise in dialect and characterization led to her becoming Warner Brothers' leading voice of female characters in their animated cartoons of the early 1940s through the mid-1950s. She was then a prominent figure on television in situation comedies, first with the George Burns and Gracie Allen Show from 1950 to 1958, for which she earned 2 Emmy Award nominations for Best Supporting Actress. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame honoring her work in television. Kay Francis. She was born in January 1905 and she died in August 1968. Her age was 63 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was breast cancer. She was an American stage and film actress. After a brief period on Broadway in late 1920s, she moved to film and achieved her greatest success between 1930 and 1936, when she was the #1 female star and highest paid actress at Warner Brothers Studio. She adapted her mother's maiden name Francis as her professional surname. Kay Francis was a popular 1930s actress known for her sophisticated performances in pre-code Hollywood films, often playing strong, glamorous women. In the spring 1925, Francis went to Paris to get a divorce. While there, she was courted by Bill Gaston, a former athlete at Harvard and member of the Boston Bar Association. Secretly married in October 1925, their marriage was short-lived, with only occasional visits between Bill in Boston and Kay in New York City. Following her mother's footsteps on the stage, she made her Broadway debut as a player, Queen, in a modern dress version of Shakespeare's Hamlet in November 1925. Tallulah Bankhead. She was born in January 1902 and she died in December 1968. Her age was 66 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was pneumonia and emphysema. Tallulah was a flamboyant actress and socialite, known for her husky voice, sharp wit, and stage and film roles. Primarily an actress of the stage, Bankhead also appeared in several films, including an award-winning performance in Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat in 1944. She also had a brief but successful career on radio and made appearances on television. In all, Bankhead amassed nearly 300 film, stage, television, and radio roles during her career. She was inducted into a Medical Theater Hall of Fame in 1972 and the Alabama Women's Hall of Fame in 1981. Bankhead was a member of the Bankhead and Brockman family, a prominent Alabama political family. Her grandfather and her uncle were United States senators, and her father was a Speaker of the House of Representatives. Bankhead supported liberal causes, including the budding civil rights movement. She also supported foster children and helped families escape the Spanish Civil War and the Second World War. William Tallman. He was born in February 1915 and he died in August 1968. His age was 53 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was lung cancer. William Tallman was an American television and movie actor, best known for playing District Attorney Hamilton Berger on Perry Mason. His anti-smoking campaign was widely recognized after his death from lung cancer. Tallman founded the drama club at the Canbrook Kingswood School in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. He continued to act at Dartmouth College and the University of Michigan. After college, he worked in summer stock and at an iron foundry, paper mills, boat yards, and as an automobile salesman. Tallman served for 30 months in the United States Army in the Pacific Theater of the Second World War, beginning his service as a private on February 4, 1942, at Camp Upton in Yampang, Long Island, New York. He was ultimately commissioned a major during the war. Tallman began his acting career on the stage. He was the leading man in the summer stock company at Iverton, Connecticut, where he met his first wife, and he played the male lead in Dear Ruth during part of the play's New York run. Francis MacDonald. He was born in August 1891 and he died in September 1968. His age was 77 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Francis MacDonald was a prolific character actor, frequently appearing in Western films alongside stars like John Wayne. His career spanned 52 years. MacDonald started acting professionally in stock theater with the Four Poor Stock Company in Cincinnati. Following 8 months with it, he worked one season with the stock company in Seattle, after which he performed for 3 seasons with the troupe in San Diego and Honolulu. He concluded his tenure in stock theater as juvenile leading man with the American Stock Company in Spokane, Washington. By 1913, MacDonald began to perform in the rapidly expanding film industry, initially working for Marion Leonard's Monopole Company in Hollywood. He was cast in over 280 films between 1913 and 1965, including The Temptress in 1926 with Greta Garbo. After he was designated Hollywood's prettiest man, MacDonald sought a tougher image by shaving his mustache and seeking role of villains. Franchot Tune. He was born in February 1905 and he died in September 1968. His age was 63 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was lung cancer. Franchot was an American actor, producer, and director of stage, film, and television. He was a leading man in the 1930s and early 1940s, and at the height of his career was known for his gentlemanly, sophisticated roles. With supporting roles by the 1950s, his acting crossed many genres, including pre-code romantic leads, Tunwall layered roles, and the World War I films. He appeared as a guest star in episodes of several Golden Age television series, including The Twilight Zone and The Alfred Hitchcock, while continuing to act and produce in the theater and movies throughout the 1960s. Tone was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role as Midshipman Roger Bame in Mutiny on the Bounty in 1935, along with his co-stars Clark Gable and Charles Laughton, making it the only film to have 3 simultaneous Best Actor nominations and leading to the creation of the Best Supporting Actor category. Fred Clarke. He was born in March 1914 and he died in December 1968. His age was 54 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was liver disease. Fred Clarke was a well-known character actor in films and television, known for often playing in authoritative roles. He performed more often for television as a regular on The George Burns and Gracie Ellen Show as neighbor Harry Morton until 1953, and guest roles for The Twilight Zone and The Beverly Hillbillies, Going My Way, The Addams Family, and I Dream for Jenny. In 1962, he and B. Bernadette, another Burns and Allen veteran, played Mr. and Mrs. Springer in the episode Continental Dinner, the series finale of the CBS situation comedy Pete and Gladys, featuring Harry Morgan and Cara Williams. Clark had a regular but short-lived role in the 1966 ABC sitcom The Double Life of Henry V as a Central Intelligence Service boss. For a hapless conscripted spy played comedian Red Buttons. Clark's Broadway stage credits included Absence of a Cello in 1964, Viva Madison Avenue in 1960, Romanoff and Juliet in 1957, Ringside Seat in 1938, What a Life in 1938, and Schoolhouse on the Lot in 1938. Dudley Dickerson. He was born in November 1906 and he died in September 1968. His age was 61 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was brain tumor. Dudley Dickerson was a comedic actor known for his roles in classic short films, especially alongside the Three Stooges. Bringing humor to audiences in the 1930s and 1940s, he appeared in nearly 160 films between 1932 and 1952. Considering the historical context of the Dickerson's career, he was frequently assigned stereotypical roles prevalent in contemporary cinema. His inexhaustible energy is evident even within these limiting roles, and he excelled in what is now recognized as kid reaction comedy. One of his early screen credits was our gang comedy Spooky Hooky in 1936. As a bemused caretaker, Dickerson also appeared in Soundy's musical films with Dorothy Dandridge and Me, Lux Lewis. Big Joe Turner had recorded 3 numbers for Soundy's but was not present for the filming, so Dickerson stood in for him and lip-synced his vocals. Probably Dickerson's most memorable role was that of the hapless chef in the Stooges. Wendell Corey. He was born in March 1914 and he died in November 1968. His age was 54 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was cirrhosis of the liver. Wendell Corey was an actor known for playing spectacle but reliable characters. He was president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and a board member of the Screen Actor Guild, and also served on the Santa Monica City Council. After graduation from high school in Springfield, Corey sold washing machines and refrigerators at a Springfield department store. When he stopped by to see a friend who was acting at the Springfield Repertory Theater, the group needed an actor to play the role of a Swedish janitor in Street Scene. Corey took the role and stayed with the theater group for a year, working in the department store during the day and acting at the night. Following that, he went into acting full-time with a theater group of Holyoke. He went to serve a long apprenticeship in the theater, producing, directing, and acting in hundreds of plays in summer stock. Corey was also employed by the Federal Theater Project. Ramon Navarro. He was born in February 1899 and he died in October 1968. His age was 69 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was homicide. Ramon Navarro was a Mexican actor who began his career in American silent films in 1917 and eventually became a leading man and one of the top box office attractions of the 1920s and early 1930s. Navarro was promoted by MGM as Latin lover and became known as a sex symbol after the death of Rudolph Valentino. He is recognized as the first Latin American actor to succeed in Hollywood. His tragic murder in 1968 shocked Hollywood. He started playing bit parts, supplementing his income by working as a singing waiter, a taxi dancer, and as a dancer in revues, choreographed by Ernest Belchers. His friends, actor and director Raz Ingram, and his wife, actress Alice Terry, began to promote him as a rival to Rudolph Valentino and Ingram suggested he change his name to Navarro. From 1923, he began to play more prominent roles. His role in Scaramouche in 1923 brought him his first major success. Navarro achieved his greatest success in 1925 in Ben-Hur. His revealing costumes caused a sensation. Red Foley, he was born in June 1910 and he died in September 1968. His age was 58 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was respiratory failure. Red Foley was a pioneering country singer and musician, helping popularize country music. He made a major contribution to the growth of country music after the Second World War. For more than 2 decades, Foley was one of the biggest stars of the genre, selling more than 25 million records. In 1951, hit "Peace in the Valley" was among his first million-selling gospel records. A Grand Ole Opry veteran until his death, Foley also hosted the first popular country music series on network television, Ozark Jubilee, from 1955 to 1960. He is a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame, which called him one of the most versatile and moving performers of all time and a giant influence during the formative years of the contemporary country music. His first single, "Life Is Good Enough for Me, The Lone Cowboy," was released in June 1933 on the Mellotone label. Virginia Wilder, she was born in March 1927 and she died in July 1968. Her age was 41 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was heart attack. Virginia Wilder was a talented child actress known for her quick and wit in films like The Philadelphia Story in 1940. She retired from acting as a teenager. She made her first film appearance in 1931. Her first credited role was a Europeana in Mrs. Weeks of The Cabbage Patch in 1934, a role she won at age 7 after having been seen in the play Autumn Crocus. Virginia made a big impression on audiences as the little girl who would hold my breath till I'm back in the face. To get her way, for the next several years, she appeared in many memorable films, from George Stevens' Laddie in 1935 to a pivotal supporting role in Souls at Sea in 1938, starring Gray Cooper and George Raft. Despite being under contract to Paramount, many of her roles of the period took place while on loan to RKO Radio Pictures. When Paramount did not extend her contract, she was signed by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in 1938. Her first film for MGM was with its leading male star, Mickey Rooney, in Love is a Headache in 1938. The film was a success, and she was later cast in larger roles. Alexander Hall, he was born in January 1894 and he died in July 1968. His age was 74 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was complications from a stroke. Alexander Hall was a Hollywood director, film editor, and theater actor. Hall acted in the theater from the age of 4 through 1914, when he began to work in silent movies. Following his military service in the First World War, he returned to Hollywood and pursued a career in film production. He worked as a film editor and as an assistant director at Paramount Pictures until 1932, when he directed his first feature film, Sinners in the Sun. From 1937 to 1947, he was a contract director at Columbia Pictures, where he earned a reputation for sophisticated comedies. He was nominated for the Academy Award for the Best Director for Here Comes Mr. Jordan in 1941. From 1934 to 1936, Hall was married to actress Lola Lane. He was also married to Marjorie Hunter. In the late 1930s, he was engaged briefly to Lucille Ball, who left him when she met Desi Arnaz. Years later, the couple later hired him to direct their 1956 film Forever, Darling. Jack Pierce. He was born in May 1889 and he died in July 1968. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was uremia. Jack Pierce was a legendary makeup artist responsible for creating the iconic looks of Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, and the Wolfman in Universal's classic horror films. After immigrating to the United States from his native Greece as a teenager, Pierce tried his hand at several careers, including a stint as an amateur baseball player. In 1920s, Pierce embarked on a series of jobs in cinema manager, stuntman, actor, even assistant director, which would eventually lead to his mastery of the field of makeup. The small-statured Pierce was never a leading man type, and he put his performing career aside to specialize in makeup for other performers. In 1915, he was hired to work on crews for the studio's productions. On the 1926 set of The Monkey Talks, Jack Pierce created the makeup for actor Jacques Lernier, who was playing a simian with the ability to communicate. The head of Universal, Carl Laemmle, was won over with the creative outcome. Upton Sinclair. He was born in September 1878 and he died in November 1968. His age was 90 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart failure. Upton Sinclair was an American author, muckraker, and political activist, and the 1934 Democratic Party nominee for governor of California. He wrote nearly 100 books and other works in several genres. Sinclair's work was well known and popular in the first half of the 20th century, and he won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1943. In 1906, Sinclair acquired particular fame for his muckraking novel, The Jungle, which exposed labor and sanitary conditions in the United States meat packing industry, causing a public uproar that contributed in part to the passage a few months later of the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. In 1919, he published The Brass Check, a muckraking expose of American journalism that publicized the issue of yellow journalism and the limitations of the free press in the United States. 4 years after publication of The Brass Check, the first Code of Ethics for journalists was created. Rose Wilder Lane. She was born in December 1886 and she died in October 1968. Her age was 81 at the time of her death and she died in her sleep. Rose Wilder Lane was the daughter of Laura Ingalls Wilder and an influential libertarian writer, playing a key role in shaping American individualist movement. By 1918, Lane's marriage officially ended and she had quit her job with the San Francisco Bulletin following the resignation of managing editor. It was at this point that Lane launched her career as freelance writer. From this period through the early 1940s, her work regularly appeared in leading publications such as Harper's, Saturday Evening Post, Sunset, Good Housekeeping, and Ladies' Home Journal. Several of her short stories were nominated for O. Henry Prizes, and a few novels became top sellers. Lane became the first biographer of Herbert Hoover, writing The Making of Herbert Hoover in 1920 in collaboration with Charles K. Field, editor of Sunset magazine. The book was published well before Hoover became president in 1929. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.